Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let's get on to PIBs of 7th, 8th and 9th of April 2020. Alright, the first press release is about Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, wherein Ministry has clarified that it has not suspended the implementation of PC and PNDT Act. Now, information about PC and PNDT Act becomes important for prelims as well as for mains exam. So, let's get into this. And context is either way obvious. Why would Government of India be suspending the enforcement of such an important act? And this act is so important. We'll see why exactly is it. Number one, what is its full form? So, PC stands for preconception and PNDT stands for prenatal diagnostic techniques. Alright, and it does what? It prohibits the sex selection. And when was it enacted? It was enacted in 1994. And certain amendments were brought into in 2003, and we'll see what these things were. But as per this very slide and this very PIB, we have gotten into 2-3 things, that preconception and prenatal diagnostic techniques, Prohibition of Sex Selection Act 1994 is there, and that's it. Let's get into the other details now because it's really important for our mains as well as for our prelims exam. So, alright. First of all, we have to understand this thing which is right here. So, what happened was in the year 1994, an act was brought into by Government of India and its name was Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Regulation and Prevention of Misuse Act. That's it, 1994. But then in 2003, certain amendments were brought into, and the most important one was this, that before prenatal, the word preconception was added, and this is very important. So, the notion of having a male child is so deeply rooted in our society that when an act was there to prohibit the prenatal sex selection, then people came up with the preconception sex selection. It's like going for a male child only during the pregnancy. So, if it's a female child in the womb, then that female baby would be killed. So, prenatal sex selection was there. But then came the idea of preconception, that even before conceiving, there has to be some procedure so that only male child is born. So, government has to brought into this preconception prohibition of sex selection as well. But then after right now we are seeing a new concept which was brought forward by the economic survey, and we are just calling it son's meta preference. So we were having prenatal selection, and then we were having preconception selection, and right now we are having son meta preference. So son meta preference means it's like people, they keep having children until they are having desired number of male child. So this is what we are mean by this. This was not a deviation. I really would not be calling it a deviation this time. Alright, so what we have gotten up till now is the name of the act per se. It's Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act 1994, and certain amendments were there in 2003. It talks about prohibition of sex selection during conception as well as prenatal stage as well, and further all its provisions are important. Its objective is definitely important, and certain societal aspects are there which we are not supposed to go into as of now because we will be keeping ourselves limited to the factual details only. So what are its objectives? So these are its objective, which are either way obvious, but still let's just go through it because after a lot of days we are having something important to cover. So offences under this act include conducting or helping in the conduct of what? Prenatal diagnostic techniques in the unregistered units, sex selection on a man or woman, conducting PND test for any purpose other than the one mentioned in the act, sale, distribution, supply, renting, etc. of any ultrasound machine or any other equipment capable of detecting sex of the fetus. That's it. What other are the main provisions? Let's just go through them now. But what broadly we are getting it, that is it really not be feasible on the part of the medical professional per se to not carry ultrasound, because there are certain things in which we need ultrasound, but what is prohibited is misusing the report to go for the sex selective abortion just to make sure that only male child is born. This is something which is prohibited, but I think we got the essence here. Moving on to its objectives, which are either way obvious, but let's just go through them now. The act provides for the prohibition of sex selection before or after the conception. Very important. It's not just about after the conception, it is equally about before conception as well. It regulates the use of prenatal diagnostic techniques like ultrasound and amniocentesis. That's it. No laboratory or center or clinic will conduct any test including ultrasonographic for the purpose of determining the sex of the fetus. So look at this word here. For the purpose of determining the sex of the fetus is important, because otherwise it is there. This ultrasonographic and this testing is still there, but the purpose is not to determine the sex. Purpose is to look at the abnormalities and to rectify those things, rectify the medical problems per se. But if the purpose is this, then definitely this is a wrong thing, or what it can attract penalty as per the PCPNDT Act. This is important. So the second line, that for the purpose of determining the sex of the fetus, is something which is important. So after comma we just have to mention this as well. So no person, including the one who is conducting the procedure as per the law, will communicate the sex of the fetus to the pregnant woman or her relatives by words, signs or any other method. This too is important. So no way the doctor who has got to know of the sex of the fetus is to communicate that very thing to the parents or to the relatives, and not just by words, but in terms of any other ingenuine method. Could be sign, it could be anything. It's not like somebody what's messaging or emailing this thing, no. So this act is also has gone into the nerve of the people, that it's not just about words, it could be anything, sign or any other methods. Any other method is also there. Number 5th is this: any person who puts an advertisement for prenatal and preconception sex determination facilities in form of a notice, circular, label, wrapper or any document, or any advertises through interior or other media, electronics or print room form, or engages in any visible representation made by means of hoarding, wall painting, signal, light, sound, smoke or gas, can be imprisoned for up to 3 years and fined rupees 10,000, which I would say is something very less, very meager. It is no way acting as a deterrent, but either way this is there. So fine is up to rupees 10,000 and imprisonment is there for 3 years only. That's it. So nowhere we will be seeing a hoarding or an advertisement that here the preconception sex determination is done. This is something which is ridiculous, and again we really don't say it. So that's it. But because of this act only, so this thing were not obvious back then in late 80s 90s. So some things that we think of as very obvious now, they were not so when the laws were not here. So that's it. So government has to intervene as and when needed. So we have covered this thing. Either way, this was very simple, only name and the year of implementation and the amendment, that it's not just about prenatal, it's equally about preconception, is something that we have to keep in mind. That's it. Further, this too is important. So in this 3 days PIB, we have something good news to cover. So what is it? This is a biofortified carrot variety developed by farmer scientists that benefits the local farmers. Now look at this. This is not developed by some DST, Department of Science and Technology, or any government institution. No. Rather, it has been developed by a farmer scientist. Of course, farmer has developed, so we are calling it scientist, but otherwise it's just a farmer. That's a really good thing. Now what is it? Its name is Madhuban Gajar. Gajar we know is carrot, and Madhuban is its name. So if a question comes, Madhuban Gajar is what? So it's basically a fortified carrot variety with high beta carotene and iron content. That's it. Who has developed it? Shri Vallabhbhai Vasrambhai Marwania. So this is the name of the farmer, Shri Vallabhbhai VM. So this farmer has developed this very variety. Alright, the entire thing about development is itself very interesting. So what happened was, during 1943, the farmer, he found that a local carrot variety which was used for fodder to improve the quality of milk. So there was a carrot variety which was fed to the cows and buffaloes in order to improve the quality of the milk. So that variety this farmer noticed, and then he developed it further. So this is it. This is the short story. Those of you with very inquisitive mindset can read it entire news on your own, but this is the short story. Then after he started building its seeds, he started disseminating this very information to other farmers as well, and this is how this news got spread, and that's it. Around 30 local seed suppliers are involved for the seed marketing of the variety throughout the country. So this farmer Shri Vallabhbhai Varambai Marwania started this very thing, but right now we are seeing it all throughout the country. And the production of seeds is being undertaken by Shri Vallabhbhai himself with a group of some local farmers. This is very, very important. This is not as if some government funded institution or startup or any organization is involved in this entire position. No, rather it's a spearheaded by a farmer and along with some local farmers, and that's it. This Shri Vallabhbhai VM has also gotten the prizes from the government of India. So here he is getting the Padma Shri in the year 2019. This too is important. So it's the latest information. Padma Shri in 2019, Shri Vallabhbhai VM conferred with this. Alright, so that's it. Let me just have a look at if I missed on something. This point is important. National Innovation Foundation, what is it? It's an autonomous institute under the Department of Science and Technology, and because now this is to be incorporated into the farm trials of all over India, so this institution has come into picture. So this institution basically undertook the trials because this is to be given to farmers all across India to be grown. So this formalization has come into picture now. The name is the National Innovation Foundation. It's an autonomous institute under Department of Science and Technology. It has conducted these trials, and that's it. So we have gotten this thing. Right now it's produced in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Assam, Haryana, Punjab and West Bengal. Alright. So we have understood what this is. It was Madhubani Gajar, and it's a carrot variety with high beta carotene and iron content, developed by not any government organization but by a farmer, and we have studied this thing. That's it. Moving on to the next PIB, which is this. This too is important. Alright, so what has happened is the scientists have designed a super absorbent material for what? For safe management, and for safe management of what? Of infected respiratory secretion. So we have got to understand one thing here, that respiratory secretions, they are definitely infectious, and especially if we are to talk about COVID-19 infections, and it's sort of dangerous on part of medical professionals to look after these medical waste. Their disposal is very, very dangerous thing to do. So this is point number one. So respiratory secretions are infectious, and their safe management is something that we have to take care of, and scientists have designed something which we are calling as super absorbent material that would take care of this very thing. Now let's get into the details of this now. So what is it? Of course intuitively we have to understand, but name is Chitra Crylow secretion solidification system. Chitra is because Chitra is the name of the institution, the scientist of which has developed this thing. So Chitra is that, nothing very thing to be understood here, but Chitra is Chitra. Then we have a Crylow secretion solidification system. So what it would do is that secretion is in liquid form, respiratory secretion of course, so it would solidify that very secretion. So if one thing gets, a liquid gets solidified, then it lessens the chances of its spillage, right? Liquid is there that can move here and there quite easily, but if it gets solidified, then the chances of its getting spilled over reduced, right? It's something that is good for the medical professional to handle then after. This is something that it would do. A Crylow secretion solidification system. So let's say a bottle is there, and respiration waste is not in the liquid form. Of course it's in liquid form, but then there is something in this bottle which we are calling as a Crylow secretion solidification system. Then this system is going to solidify that very secretion, and then we are going to zip it, and then we are going to put it into the incineration to be disposed of perfectly fine. That's it. This is what it means. That's it. Nothing very difficult here, although the name is quite fancy, a Crylow secretion solidification system, but in a simple language this is what it is. So we have dealt with this very PIB as well. In developed nation this thing is already there, but now even in our country we would be implementing this, because this is very, very important, especially to deal with the respiratory infection of the COVID-19 patients. Alright, now this too is something which is there but not important. It is absolutely not important in fact. So what is it? It's a Samadhan challenge by what? by Ministry of Human Resource Development. So as the name suggests, it's a samadhan. Samadhan means solution. Solution to what? Definitely to COVID-19 infection. Everybody is worried about this, so why would government be thinking of a solution something else? So solution of COVID-19 infection is there. Minister of HRD has called students to come up with certain innovative solutions to fight with the COVID-19 infection, and that entire thing is being termed as Samadhan Challenge. The application are to be submitted by 14th April 2020. So if you too are students and you think you can do something, then do submit the application and go for the Samadhan Challenge. This was not important for exam, definitely. Moving on to the next PIB, which is right here. Again, not very important. It's just that right now COVID-19 infection is there. So government is molding the schemes. Government is bringing slight changes in the scheme so that it can be molded as per the needs of the people. For example, we know National Food Security Act is there, but beneficiaries are only 67% of the people, 50% from the urban area and 75% from the rural area. But then what about rest of the 50% of the urban and 25% of the urban people? Rural people, right? What about the people who are not into the NFSA? So they also need certain food grains, and this is what this PIB is all about. So right now, what Government of India has done is that people who are not into the domain of the NFSA, they too would be entitled to the food grain from the FCI, but the prices is slight higher than ones who are getting it under NFSA. So we know under National Food Security Act, one is entitled to the rice at rupees 3 per kg and wheat at rupees 2 per kg and coarse millets at rupees 1 per kg. But under this very thing, wherein everybody is entitled as far as one is having the ration card, so one can have 5 kg per person per month for 3 months. What? Wheat at the rate of 21 per kg and rice at the rate of 22 per kg. That's it. Not very important. I mean, absolutely not important, but maybe because it's right there, and also we people are supposed to tell about this thing to our neighbors so that everybody can get the benefit. This is needed for most of us. That's it. So Government of India would be providing the food grains to everybody whosoever has a ration card at rupees 21 per kg wheat and 22 per kg rice for 3 months. 5 kg per person limit is there. Nothing important for exam per se. That's it. Moving on to the last PIB. No, it's not the last. It was yesterday one. So we have covered the PIBs from 7th, 8th and 9th of April 2020. I am to think if I have missed out anything or not. Yes, there is one thing that I have missed out, and this is this. This is about the Pradhan Mantri Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. There was something in the PIB that was talking about this very scheme, but because this scheme is to be covered in a detailed manner, holistically, we can't just rely on one website. So points are to be created from 2-3 areas. So this is the very reason I am not covering it right here. I'll cover this scheme and one more in tomorrow's lecture. So don't worry, it will definitely get covered, and that too in a very holistic manner so that nothing gets left off, right? So we are done with the PIBs of 7th, 8th and 9th of April 2020. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.